The Peasant Prince by Li Sing and Anne Spodvelis. Some time ago, in a remote village in northern China, a small peasant boy lived with his parents and 6 brothers in a tiny brick house. They were very poor. On the bleak farming lands around his village, the boy would often fly a homemade kite. It was a gift from his beloved father. That small boy was me, and my story begins with that kite. On one bitterly cold day, near our home in Qingdao, I tied some paper wishes to my kite, and my father helped me fly it up into the sky. The kite soared like a bird, and my hopes and wishes went with it. Then he sat down beside me, as he always did, and told me a story. I loved all his stories, but my favourite one was this. Once upon a time, a little frog lived in a deep, dark well. It was his only home. One day, he met a frog from the world above. "Come down and play with me," begged the frog in the well. The frog from the world above laughed. "My world up here is much bigger." The frog in the well was very annoyed, so he told his father what he'd heard. "My son," his father said with a sad heart, "I have heard there is a bigger and better world up there, but our life is here, in the well. There is no way we can get out." "I want to see what is out there," cried the little frog. But even though he jumped and hopped, the well was just too deep. "It is no use, my son," said his father. "I have tried all my life to get out." Still, the little frog kept on trying to escape from the deep, dark well. Long after my father had finished his tale, I kept thinking about that sad little frog in the well. Back at our house, I would help my mother cook. It was our special time together. When we all sat down to eat, we would stare longingly at what little food there was. Every night our mother would pray that none of her sons would die from starvation. I was always hungry. At night we slept head to toe, crammed on a hard dirt-made bed. I hated my brother's feet in my face. Still, I would dream about my kite and the little frog in the well. But my brothers and I were luckier than some in our village. We survived. At the age of 9, we started school. In winter, it was a long, cold walk to our simple schoolroom of mud and straw. The icy winds blew snow through our clothes, chilling deep into our bones. One very cold day, 4 strange officials came into our classroom. They wanted to take some children to study something called ballet. Only one girl was chosen. Then, just as they were about to leave, Teacher Song suddenly pointed at me. "What about this one?" she said. The girl and I were measured and tested. My legs were lifted high, my body was stretched, but I did not cry out in pain. I thought again of the little frog in the well. Perhaps if I could pass this test, I could help my family live a better life. For many weeks I waited. Then, no one could believe the news. Li Sing, a poor peasant boy, had been chosen from the millions of children in the whole of China. I was to leave home and become a dancer. "Mother," I said, "can you come with me?" "My dear son," she replied, "this is your one chance to escape this cruel world. You have your secret dreams. Follow them. Make them come true." I could feel my mother's love as she held me tight in her arms. And so I waved goodbye to the only home I had ever known. I was just 11 years old. I was taken away on a crowded train. Such strange sights and sounds at the enormous Beijing station. I was lost in this vast, teeming city. All I felt was fear. Before I knew it, my life had begun. I was plunged into my first days at the Beijing Dance Academy. They were long and hard and bewildering. I was one of the worst students, and I felt so shy, lost in an ocean of loneliness. I missed my mother, and every night I sobbed myself to sleep. Sometimes I would find a place to hide amongst the weeping willows. The dripping leaves quivered as my tears fell, as if the trees themselves understood my sadness. 2 years went by before I found a friend. He was called the Bandit, and we helped each other through. And later I met Teacher Sayo. Teacher Sayo showed me the most beautiful leaps, graceful as a pheasant, powerful as a dragon. Nothing is impossible, he urged, and he told me the story of the bowshooter who had to practice over and over if he wanted to become the best in all of China. I loved the stories Teacher Sayo taught me. They were stories of courage, hope, and great achievement. So I too began to practice night after night, turning and turning by the light of a single dim candle. I practiced for years in those ballet studios. By the time I was 18, Teacher Sayo told me I had become one of the best dancers in China. I wished so much that my parents could come and see me, but how would that ever be possible when they were so poor? Then one day, a famous ballet master came to visit our academy. His name was Ben, and he asked me if I would like to study ballet in his country, America. I thought again of the little frog and said yes. Soon I found myself on a plane, travelling halfway across the world. Now I was even further from my family. I landed in a foreign city of huge highways and enormous buildings. I could not believe what I was seeing. It was not a bit like China. In America, I worked hard on my ballet, and by the time I was 21, I was travelling all over the world and dancing in great cities like London, Paris, and Moscow. I had become a star. But every day I remembered my mother and father, and how lonely life was without them. It had been many long years since we'd been separated, and something was always missing in my heart. Then one day, a wonderful thing happened. I learned that my parents could come from China to see me dance. Could it be true that after all this time I was to see them once more? It was the grand opening of Nutcracker. In the dressing room, I looked at my parents' precious photograph, as I always did. Soon I would see their faces, really see them. Not just in a photo. My hands were trembling. My heart was beating fast. At last it was time to dance, and I leapt onto the stage. Suddenly, through a beam of light, I saw them, my dear mother and father, sitting in the audience. I saw their beautiful faces. I saw their sparkling eyes. And I saw their smiles, so big and proud. "Our son, you did it," I could almost hear them say. "You followed your dreams and you made your wishes come true." Yes, I thought, it is true. I did it. And now we are together again at last. That night, the night I will never forget, my heart soared with happiness and I danced the dance of my life. And so the little frog did get out of the well, but he never forgot where he came from. Even after all those years, the young man who had become a dancer would always remember that small boy flying his kite on a bitterly cold day in a faraway place called Qingdao.